Criminally negligent homicide is all he's been convicted of. He's facing 6 months to a maximum of 2 years in prison for unaliving his classmate after stabbing in a bathroom. Now, I brought you guys this case a couple of weeks ago with Kase Allison because I felt like it bared so much similarities to the Karmelo Anthony case. And both of these cases are in Texas. Both of these cases involve teens, and both of these cases involve knives, where people are saying that they were acting in self-defense and feared for their lives.
He says Texas recognizes imperfect self-defense. Impact?
Well, unfortunately for Anthony, the version of imperfect self-defense that Texas recognizes is different than the rest of the country. The rest of the country, and what imperfect self-defense does, is if you're convicted.
Yes, we'll notice something pertaining to this topic. We are not going to stop, no matter how they try to suppress it. For the past 2 days, I realized something. When I put up a video on this topic, is it that they will remove monetization on the video or they take it down? I don't know why they're doing this. I will check from the beginning to the end to see if there is something I said I won't see. So I don't know if they don't want us to cover the topic, but I'll try my best to see that you know what is going on. Timpo had this segment the other time. I realize it is trending on social media. A lot of people are reacting to it. It is important. I show you some videos. At a certain point, I told myself I wouldn't do this again. But I keep seeing a lot of people writing me every single time about it, like I should continue to report, but I cannot do that to the detriment of my channel. I will try my best to bring you update on what is going on.
Criminally negligent homicide is all he's been convicted of. He's facing 6 months to a maximum of 2 years in prison for unaliving his classmate after stabbing in a bathroom. Now, I brought you guys this case a couple of weeks ago with Kase Allison because I felt like it bared so much similarities to the Karmelo Anthony case. And both of these cases are in Texas. Both of these cases involve teens, and both of these cases involve knives, where people are saying that they were acting in self-defense and feared for their lives. And I don't hear any outrage about this. I don't know if you guys are hearing, but yesterday, Kase Allison, who is the white teen pictured here, okay, he went to his school with a knife and he unalived his classmate, who is this guy, Joe Ramirez. They're both 17 at the time. This happened back in 2022, just to give you guys a recap, and then we'll talk about the verdict, okay? Back in 2022. Now, the difference between Kase Allison's case and Karmelo Anthony's case is that Kase Allison actually knew Joe Ramirez, okay? They had ongoing issues and had agreed to fight. Okay, they agreed that on this particular day, they were going to show up to the school and they were going to get it over with, because they had been going back and forth for a little while now over a girl, right? According to the mom, it was over a girl. But multiple people testified they saw Snapchat messages, group chat messages, that these two agreed they were going to fight. Now, on the day that all of this happened, Joe Ramirez went into the restroom with the group of his friends. Kase Allison came later with a group of his friends, and it is being reported that Joe Ramirez threw the first punch, okay? That is when Kase Allison took out a knife.
Yes, there is one thing that get me so irritated about this whole situation is the fact that people keep bringing comparisons for reasons I don't know. This case, this guy has not been tried yet. We are waiting to see the end result, but it's like people are already bringing conclusions on what is going on. Some says this is not enough. That is what I see on social media. I don't want to go into conclusions on anything because I know less. I just want to react, share my thought on situations like this. This lady is putting out a lot of videos on this topic. I think around 6 to 8 videos I've seen, but her takes on all this is totally different. That is where I'm concerned. Let's proceed to watch the video.
Times, okay? Remember, with Karmelo, he only stabbed him once and then he ran. Kase Joe Ramirez over 5 times. And they say there is video of Joe Ramirez coming out of the restroom and collapsing in the school hallway after he exited that restroom. Kase Allison ran home. He was arrested and charged with murder, just like Karmelo Anthony was charged, right? He was saying that he was acting in self-defense. His bond was set at $1 million. It was dropped down even lower than Karmelo Anthony's bail was dropped down, right? Because his was dropped down to, I think, 150 or 175. It was somewhere in that 100,000 range. So he's been out for almost 3 years, okay? And so the verdict came back yesterday and he was acquitted of murder charge. They said they found him guilty, okay, of criminally negligent harm. And the jury believed that he was acting in self-defense and fear for his life, even though they had several people who testified and said that Kase Allison had threatened Joe Ramirez on multiple occasions, even though they had Snapchat and group chat messages to prove that Kase Allison knew that on that day he was going to fight Joe Ramirez, and he still brought a knife. So only he knew that he brought that knife. Joe Ramirez had no idea. And they still found him guilty of criminally negligent. So he's only facing up to 2 years for doing not anything similar to what Karmelo Anthony did, because I feel like his was more egregious. His was premeditated, in my opinion, right? He knew that he was going to fight Joe. He knew Joe. He had threatened Joe on multiple occasions. And he had a substance issue. But he still was found guilty on the very lesser charge. So they allowed him to go home. After they came down with the verdict, he's still allowed to go home until his sentencing, right? And I don't know if that's because he's out on bail. I don't know the logistics and all of that, but very interesting. So I'm really looking forward to see how this Karmelo Anthony case plays out.
It's He says Texas recognizes imperfect self-defense. Impact?
Well, unfortunately for Anthony, the version of imperfect self-defense that Texas recognizes is different than the rest of the country. The rest of the country, and what imperfect self-defense does is, if you're convicted looking at life, you're looking at 20, maybe you get out in 7, 8 years. You started as a 17-year-old kid, you're out in your mid-20s, you still have a life to live. Man sucks, but it's a lot better than conviction. And in most states, how imperfect self-defense works is you had a genuine fear of deadly force harm from somebody and self-defense, but your fear was objectively unreasonable. It was kind of a panic reaction, for example. That can't qualify as perfect self-defense and get you an acquittal, because perfect self-defense has to be reasonable, but it can mitigate.
So let's say there's like an old white guy and he's like, seriously, like 75.
I think we just had a case like this where an old white guy, a young black gentleman came up to his door. Right?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yep.
He got into a car accident and he jogged up to the door to ask for help, and he was injured, and the old man feared this, panicked, think he was going to be robbed or whatever.
Through the door, wasn't it?
I think it was through the door.
Well, in the case I'm thinking of, the young black man thought he was at someone's house to pick up
that was
his
a
brother.
different one.
Right.
Not that one.
I got the door.
Yeah, but that kid, like, the report for that is that he knocked on the door.
Yeah.
I kind of think he probably opened the door, thinking like
he definitely had his hand. He had his hand on the handle. Yeah.
So
Yes, I want to ask you a question. If you actually understand what this lady was struggling to do, she put out this video because she wanted to compare these two situations, because white and black. That is what she's struggling to do. I went through her TikTok account to see the kind of video she's putting out. I realized she's fond of this race baiting like that. That has been the focus with people. Like we said on some of the videos, the issue was turning or is turning into a race issue, which to me, I don't see it. She came with a case like this similar situation happened. At the end of the day, this is how this person was punished. He's facing up to 2 years, like she said. Now, then end by trying to compare with this situation, like she wants to see how this will end. Implying if it's not like these two white kids, you will see a lot of them getting agitated on social media. It is wrong. Let's allow the law to take it, because we should observe the end result of it. People should not jump into conclusions about this whole thing. I don't want to see that. Like I said, I'm not someone who would like to talk about race-related topics. I hate it with all my life. I've been saying it like a song. To stop racism is to stop talking about it. That has been my principle. I don't always like to go into that. I want to report news, tell you what is happening in around you. That is what I want to do every single day. Reasons you see me doing different types of videos. I decided to report on this topic because I realized the mainstream media will not proceed to report showing you what is happening. That has been my focus. Thank you guys for always been there sharing out my videos. God bless you abundantly.
Accusations that have been said about us, especially over the past week, has been overwhelming. The lies and their amplification.
This is not going to end. Right is right and wrong is wrong. All good.
If you see any clips after this, that is just for the YouTube algorithm.
What if he says self-defense?
There's no self-defense because if you are afraid the day before, well, you have to take a to school, why not notify your parents? Parents, you notify the school teachers. School teachers, let's bring these kids in here and resolve this issue. It's called conflict resolution.
Again, the evidence is still coming in.
This is definitely a self-defense case because it always is one until you look at the facts of the case and compare the two. You have to compare who was the initial aggressor.
Bedroom, because she's fearful of what might happen to her.
Followers for anything, and then the
Registration Act is
talking about this man kill.
My summary of the first 100 days is that
if film and TV productions continue to
first term, and you will be very pleased.
In a 4-car motorcade with a police escort.